On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, SGA makes all NBA, how his Supermax eligibility impacts the Thunder, plus what lessons we learned this postseason.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into what the Thunder learned during their postseason run, SGA making all NBA, and what does that mean for the Thunder's future? So a lot to get into today. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe for free anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. Leave a like, comment, review, all that great stuff. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball every day, even in the offseason. So SGA makes all NBA first team. This is his second consecutive first team finish. 3 OKC players have done that before now. Joining SGA is, of course, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. The Thunder have the most All-NBA appearances since 2008, 2009. Of course, since the relocation, they've had more like All-NBA players, All-NBA seasons than non-All-NBA seasons, which is just crazy. It just kind of shows you, how what we always talk about, how fortunate this Thunder community is to see a team like this. You look around the NBA, goodness is this not promised? But this makes Shai max contract eligible, and this is like a huge deal for multiple reasons. Number one, just for Shai, Shai's Supermax with the new TV rights, and you can bank in, of course, expansion and things of that nature. But with the money going up in the NBA, with business booming, he's eligible to sign this Supermax in the 2025 offseason. I think it'll go the same way that it went the last time Shai was eligible for an extension. The deal gets announced by Woj, a preloaded tweet, as soon as the clock strikes midnight for these two parties, because this is a lot of money on the table. Shai will be the first ever player to make $80+ million in a single season. He'll have 35% of the cap. He'll have 2 years left on this current contract when he signs this in 2025. Signing this in 2025 will then have him 6 years of club control total, because of course he'll have those 2 years left. Then he'll have 4 years on this 4-year, $294 million contract. So this is great for of course, SGA, and I think that's going to do wonders for keeping him on this initial next deal because of the money owed. He's going to for sure sign it, obviously, and you go from there. I think that the first wave of sticker shock of getting this information from Bobby Marks might have been for Thunder fans to worry about the future and worry about how the Thunder can keep Shai and J-Dub and Chet together. I don't think anyone is better positioned to keep their core intact than Oklahoma City, because what you need to be able to do that is, one, foresight that these guys are going to be really good. It's more difficult to keep a core together whenever guys jump out and surprise you. The Thunder have been planning for this. They've been preparing for this. They knew this was coming. This was something that they are well aware of. And so they've laid the groundwork to be able to do it. Number two, Shai is going to for sure sign this deal. No one turns down their first contract, after the rookie season, after the rookie scale deal. So J-Dub and Chet, they're going to sign. So the guys are going to sign. Then you look at what it takes to maintain a core like that, to maintain a core of one player is getting 35% of the cap, and you're going to be paying the max to J-Dub and Chet on their rookie scale extensions. What it takes to kind of sustain that is cost-controlled talent. How do you get cost-controlled talent? Through the draft and through these mountains of draft picks. Now, as you've seen from the Thunder and from other NBA teams, you're not going to hit every single draft pick. But what you can do is use those draft picks in a multitude of ways. So the first way is just simply hitting your first-round pick. You get a guy like Cason Wallace, who's an instant impact as a rookie on a very team-friendly deal, and you move on from there. The second way of doing it That's not even to mention if you strike iron again or strike fire again in the undrafted pool like you did with Lou Dort, and the second round like you did with Aaron Wiggins and Jay Whale. Like that's not even counting that. The second way to do things is at the trade deadline. At the trade deadline, every single year, we see this expiring contracts from veterans who are on good price points go for a couple second round picks. Guess who has an ungodly amount of second round picks in the future? The Thunder. Like that's what this is for. Of course, the Thunder know they can't draft 50 second round guys, but you can use those as currency in other ways. And so the Thunder, I think, it's going to be a talking point from now for forever of like, how can they pay all these guys? How can they keep this core intact? The Thunder have done everything possible to keep this group together financially and keep this group together in terms of sustainability. So I don't even consider that like a genuine issue. Obviously, if you mess up the margins around them, then things get dicey. But no one is in a better position to handle it than OKC. I think that the more interesting conversation is actually in the short term, which is a breath of fresh air because typically we think of this Thunder team in the long term, think this Thunder team way out in the future. But actually, in the short term, it's now or never for OKC. And maybe never is the more likely option, but it's now or never to go get a high-paid, big-time player. So if the Thunder want to go take on a Lauri Markkanen, Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell type of player, it has to be right now because you have this unique opportunity to go get someone into the cap space you have this summer and have that contract understanding, going into it understanding like, hey, you might trade for KD, you might trade for Lauri, you might trade for Donovan Mitchell. Name your star, right? You might trade for them. Understand that you're bringing them to the cap space this summer and that you're going to have to like part ways after this contract is up no matter what because of all the guys you have to pay internally. But you can also by that point maximize these next couple of seasons while not at all hindering your future because you're just using the cap space available to you that you have to utilize anyway. The more likely option is that the Thunder are going to lean into internal development, and that's going to be their strategy. But it's an interesting idea that like you could find a way to do both. Now, maybe the market never materializes to have a player like a KD, like a Lauri Markkanen, whose contracts line up with this idea, with this theory of like, they perfectly fall off as soon as the extensions kick in, and you just move on from them and worry now about pivoting back to finding cost control talent. But it's certainly on the table. Again, we don't really know which way the Thunder are leaning yet. We haven't even talked to Sam yet for the end of season presser. That'll be next week. So maybe that gives us an indication in some capacity. But there's still a long ways to go from now until the offseason. And even the rumors that'll come out are not like genuine rumors because as the Thunder are one, the kings of misdirection, and two, don't let a ton leak of like what they actually plan to do. So, you look at the rumors, a lot of it's going to be just based upon the fact that they have cap space and draft picks and not necessarily like what they're actually leaning to do. So I don't know that we'll know their plan until their plan actually unfolds. But I think that this Supermax conversation, when you lay it all out, can actually benefit OKC both in the short term and long term. And you can find them, trying to thread the needle here of a pseudo like two timelines thing, which is now like the popular buzzword of NBA podcasters, two timelines that Golden State tried out. We'll see. That's what's going to make the offseason so fun is that nothing's truly off the table. Like nothing is a silly thought or idea on the surface. Now you can start to break things down and then they become either more likely or less likely. But would it just shock you if the Thunder like go out there and go get a star? No. Would it just shock you if they didn't? Of course not. There's sound logic to each side of the aisle, which puts the Thunder in a potential spot here where they can really, really shake things up and keep everybody on their toes, maybe play it to their advantage in the market. Who knows? But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see how this all pans out. But first of all, Shai, congratulations on the contracts and the money and everything else. Like that's huge. But for the Thunder, it opens up this Pandora's box. I think that they could make a good argument for wanting to go get a Kevin Durant or go get a Lauri Markkanen or go get a whoever. But I think ultimately it's always safer to bet on them being a team that's focusing on internal development because Chet's going to make a leap next year. I fully believe in J-Dub to make another leap. I know he made a massive one from year 1 to 2, but that work ethic, that drive that he has, and what we've seen from him, I think that he can polish up his game and make another leap just based upon polishing his game, much less adding to his game. Shai every year has came back better. I don't have really any doubts he'll come back better next season. I think that his biggest point of improvement, as we're going to talk about, can be his playmaking chops as he made strides in playmaking this season. I think he has another gauge to get to. These guys like Shai and Lou, they're going to go play in the Olympics, and every single person who's played in the Olympics has talked about, and Josh will play in the Olympics, like they've talked about how the Olympics makes them better and makes them improve, and allows them to improve their game over the course of a summer. So like the Thunder's internal strategies, I think Kaysen will get better. Like the Thunder's internal development will be a huge leg up. So again, neither option is wrong, but the money aspect of it is very, very, very interesting in OKC. We'll talk about more from this team, including what the Thunder learned in the postseason coming up. But first, once here right now, but good friends over at LinkedIn. Check out LinkedIn right now because LinkedIn is hiring for you. And they know that small businesses, you want to find qualified candidates and professionals faster and for you. So go right now to find the right roles for these candidates and for you as you check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that you need to make the right hire and get the right professionals for your team faster and for free. They know that as a small business, you're wearing so many different hats, that you do not have time to just drain on trying to make a hire. So they make it easy to make it fast with the resources that they give you to make that hire quicker. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn is a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes the best place for you to go hire. And it gives you the access to professionals that you cannot find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all this while making the process easier and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have the help of LinkedIn to get you the qualified candidates that you need. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Check it out today because 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Make sure you go there right now to linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedInNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, of course, do apply. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Well, let's talk about the postseason. What lessons can be learned from Oklahoma City and for Oklahoma City in this playoffs? This entire next two segments where we're going to talk about this stuff, it all deserves the caveat of like the Thunder went 4-0 versus the Pelicans. They started out 5-0 this postseason. They lost in 6 games to Dallas, who now is in the driver's seat to go to the Western Conference Finals. To go to the NBA Finals and be Western Conference champions. They won 57 games. They were the 1 seed, the youngest of all time in the toughest conference that we've seen. They made another season of 15-plus win improvements again, 17-win total leap from OKC. SGA made that MVP leap. Like he only finished second, but come on, like that was an MVP season from SGA. J-Dub played like an all-star for the entire regular season. Chet Holmgren was as good as advertised and changed the game. Mark was coach of the year. The Thunder, top 5 offense, top 5 defense. They were 40 wins before 20 losses, a contender by every measure, and had an awesome, awesome season. But there are still things to learn and clean up and get better and grow from this season. That's the entire point of this season, was to get better and to grow. The first and foremost, issue or lesson that I think that the Thunder have to fix is Chet Holmgren's consistent source of offense. I think that some of this is on Chet. There's opportunities for him where he could have shot the ball more, and that's on him. He should have shot the ball more and took advantage of guards on him that he can shoot over. But far too often, it was on the table setters who failed him. Like, I believe that Chet Holmgren will make a massive production leap offensively next season, and will contribute a lot of that and credit a lot of that to Chet. But when in reality, like the way that Chet Holmgren makes a leap next year is by better guard play, is by better play from the ball handlers. Because he's far too lethal in the pick and roll, in the pick and pop, and just as a partner in general, to not be spoon-fed opportunities. This is a guy who can shoot, who can score at all three levels, who can drive, who can create for himself, who can finish off plays as a roller, as a lob threat. He has to get the ball more. He has to be trusted more. Like the pick and roll numbers, he was a very good pick and roll partner. They only went to it a couple times a game, right? And actually gave him the ball on pick and roll chances. I think that in and of itself has to increase. I think that when you look at the Thunder offense, like they were awesome. Again, we gave those caveats. We look at the Thunder offense. We just talked about how much Chet can score the basketball. He's also a savvy playmaker who you can trust more in the short roll to redirect the ball to open weapons, who you can trust that if you run a pick and pop and the window closes and he can't shoot, he's going to get you the ball back, right? If you run a pick and roll and get an entry pass and then the low man rotates over and it's taken away, he's going to get you the ball back. So trust in him that you can get him the ball early in possessions, like early in actions, early in the shot clock. And then if that's taken away, he can redirect it out to you, reset, and then you go take your tough mid-range jumper. Then you go hit your difficult bucket. Far too often, I think that Shai and J-Dub were looking to get to their spots and looking to hit that rise-up elbow jumper, hit that move guys off their spot, putting a shoulder into them, hitting a tough bucket. Whenever you first can go to Chet, who had that crease, right, and make your life easier and get him going offensively as well. So that mindset change of being willing to pass early and often, and just simply development of like J-Dub has to develop more as a live ball passer. Same with Shai. Like that development will come over time too. That chemistry and trust will come over time as well. And so this is going to be an easy fix. I believe that the two guys, J-Dub and Shai, have the baseline of playmaking ability to make this thing cook and make this thing hum. But that minor tweak of just like going to him more early in shot clocks, early in action, and then relying on difficult shots, not doing it the other way around, I think can really help the Thunder offense. But either way, Chet's far too versatile and impactful offensively for him to have these scoring lulls. And a lot of that comes down to, as a big man, your guard play and your table setters. It's why I think that the Thunder could stand to add another playmaking type of guy. That's why I really like Jared McCain of what he can develop into with these teammates around him. And we'll have draft profile and projections all coming up on Locked On Thunder as we do every year as we get through this week. But Chet Holmgren becoming a more consistent source of offense will be huge. I think Jalen Williams learned what it takes, learned the fact that you have to be aggressive and have to diversify your scoring portfolio. He had a disappointing series against Dallas. But you got to get to your spots faster. You got to use your body more. You got to trust your work more. You've got to understand, this is a mindset change for all three guys, really, Chet, J-Dub, and Shai. You're going to have to take tough shots. It's going to come down to that. It's going to come down to willingness to be healthily unselfish. You don't want to just be shot chucking. There's a delicate tango of shot chucking versus, hey, I'm one of the top three guys. I've got to go make a play. Maybe Casey Wallace is wide open in the corner. I've got to go make a play. You don't want to just completely ignore your complementary players. Of course not. But there's also that dance you have to do of taking over games and being aggressive. And I think that overall their mindset will be a massive sense of change next time around. We'll talk about that coming up as well. But the Thunder overall also have to pivot faster and give yourself the opportunity to pivot. So, for example, you go away from Josh Giddey in the starting five, a decision that Josh Giddey said he agrees with, a decision that bred the results you wanted. You started out both those games faster, game 5 and 6. Also, a decision that was very clear after game 1 that you were going to have to do. Very abundantly clear. Going to that quicker, right? And it was a move that Josh Giddey revealed whenever I asked him at exit interviews, what were the conversations like leading up to that? A move that you had already addressed with Josh Giddey before the playoffs even began. Come playoff time, you could be getting benched, right? So it's a move that was on the table. It was a move that you already subconsciously felt was going to be needed at some point in the playoffs. Waiting to game 5 to do it, I would have liked to seen that a little bit earlier for OKC. And then the big conversation has gotten to a point of toxicity But one thing that I think that everybody can agree on, like, don't be extreme in either direction. Don't be so extreme that like the Thunder could never stand to add size, but don't be so extreme that, like the Thunder are just this massive failure for not getting a beefy big man. One thing that's for sure though is that you want to give yourself the curveball. You want to put the tool in your toolbox of here's a guy to come junk up a game and come be a change of pace guy, even for just moments like this. End of game 6, what ended up deciding your series, the difference in the series being over and you heading back home for a winner go home game 7. You had to clean the glass on this free throw attempt. You did the right things in the sense of like the tools at your disposal. The best option is putting J. Will and Chet together down low and going and getting that rebound. Those two couldn't do it. Like, you've got to get a better option of when you need size, when you need to get a guy to go in there and get a rebound or go in there and help clog the paint defensively. Like, you've got to have a little bit of a better option. And it's not an option that you have to lean on and abandon your identity at all. But it's a guy you have to use to throw a curveball out there. I use this example a lot. It's a very extreme example, but like the Mavericks throwing out Boban with Rick Carlisle to just junk up a series with the Clippers and just throw you a new kind of change of pace. Like, you've got to have guys like that in these moments. I also think that you've learned, and this young team has learned the urgency and the mentality that it takes to play in the postseason. We'll talk about both those things coming up. But first, once here right now, about our good friends over at BetterHelp. Check out BetterHelp today. BetterHelp is there for you because at BetterHelp, they understand that like most people, right, can benefit from therapy, because no one wants to sit there and let things bottle up and stay inside. It's not good. It's not good. But a lot of people use the excuse, including myself, like I could benefit from therapy and letting things out and talking to somebody, but I'm far too busy. Right? I'm far too busy to go to an actual, brick and mortar building and go book a therapist and things like that. BetterHelp comes in with exactly what you need because BetterHelp is entirely online. It's entirely designed for your convenience. It's flexible and catered around your schedule. So you just fill out this brief questionnaire and you get matched with a licensed therapist. And right there, they'll let you, of course, match with that therapist. If you guys click, that's perfect. But if you guys don't click, you can even switch therapists at any time, no additional charge until you find the right one for you. So go there right now to get things off your chest with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA for 10% off of your first month. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Drop below what you think the Thunder should do in terms of Shai's Supermax upcoming and the cap space that they have this summer, what you think the biggest lessons learned for this Thunder team has been, and tomorrow's show is a special one. It's our annual Stock Watch show. We've reached another benchmark, the end of the season. Whose stock is rising? Whose stock is falling on the Thunder's roster? Let me know what you think down below in preview of that show. But 2 more lessons the Thunder have learned. Number 1 is urgency. Urgency, urgency, urgency. The Mavericks were the far more desperate team. They gave more effort. They played with more intensity. There were only certain instances where the Thunder matched that level of desperation, matched that level of intensity and effort. They matched it in game 1. They matched it in the fourth quarter of game 4. They matched it in game 6. In those games, they went 2-1 and lost at the buzzer in that one loss. They gave themselves the chance to win, but there were other games where you didn't even give yourself a chance. Now, having seen the postseason as a coaching staff, as players, now you understand what's required of you to win a 7-game series versus a formidable opponent. And yes, the Thunder did sweep the Pelicans. This Pelicans team, we know what the deal was there, right? The injuries and just the overall matchup was a fantastic for OKC. Like, you had the perfect guy to defend Brandon Ingram. He hates whenever guys are up under him. And you had Valanciunas, who is just not playable in the postseason. But then you went up against Dallas Mavericks, and look what happened. Along with that urgency is mindset. First and foremost, the mindset trickles down. We've talked about how J-Dub and Chet and Shai at times need to be more, quote unquote selfish, like need to be more willing to take over. That also goes down to the complementary players. Like, you want to know why? Like, as people complain today about Derrick Jones Jr. And PJ Washington not lighting the Nets on fire from 3 against Minnesota as they did against OKC. You want to know why that those two guys lit up OKC? They were willing to take the shot. They were willing in that moment to shoot. And it's not always going to pan out. But you know how you're never going to make a shot? If your guys are pump faking opportunities away in the corner. If your guys are not willing to take those open looks. You might clank them, as the Mavericks did in game 1. I will say, like, the Mavericks, yes, did not get a huge game from PJ or from Derrick Jones Jr. Offensively, but they also got a huge night from Kyrie, which they did not get at all against the Thunder. So, like, the series stuff all balances out. Nonetheless, though, even the mindset of your complementary pieces, like the willingness to take that shot, is the difference in having a PJ Washington series and having a forgettable series where you make no offensive impact. And we mentioned the mindset, too, of the Stars, willingness to take tough shots, willingness to understand that, a good shot or even an average shot quality from Shai, Chet, and J-Dub is far better than, like, leaving it in the hands of somebody else. You've got to take more of those for all 3 guys. And I think that they've learned that lesson. I think as the series progressed, you saw Shai learn that lesson. I think that you're going to see J-Dub learn that lesson. And we've already talked about ad nauseum how Chet can improve offensively. I think that the Thunder also had to learn, like, a part of this mindset is the edge and physicality necessary to play a playoff series. A core moment of this series to me was Game 5. A game that swings every series known to man historically. Game 5, there's a long rebound out to the corner. Derrick Jones Jr. has a chance to go get it and go get possession for his team. Instead, he elects to hip check Isaiah Joe, and nobody cares. Asserting that physicality, Dallas did a great job of that all series long. Asserting that edge, PJ Washington and these guys have done a great job all playoffs long. Like, you saw them get dusted up with the Clippers. You saw the post up of PJ Washington where he crosses his arms, and it's now a forever meme for Dallas Mavericks fans. Like, you need that edge, that swagger, that physicality. You need some actual dogs. You need the proclaimed dogs to play like dogs. There's only one instance where the Thunder had any sort of edge, and that was at the end of Game 4 when Kenny Hustle at the 9:33 mark got a technical foul, and that sparked the Thunder into Lou Dort getting chippy with the officials and into a massive run and a massive win. The difference in not getting beaten 5 games. When they did these things, when they played with urgency, when they played with that edge, they won games. It's really a massive, massive thing that's really intangible, and you can't crunch it down into some advanced stat called Raptor or whatever, but, like, it matters. And I think that the last thing on the mindset is just pretty simple again, but understanding it's a different game. Like, it sounds good, right? It sounds good to say 0-0, same thing as the regular season. It's not, though. It's not. It sounds good to come in there and be laissez-faire and be eating a banana whenever your season's on the line. Like, it sounds great, but you're not trying to make the coolest TikTok edit here. You're trying to win series and win games and go and win a championship. And it is different. Every single battle-tested team will tell you this is a far different game than the regular season. Now, you don't want to play too much into that, but you have to at least acknowledge that. And top to bottom in this initial run, I don't think anyone was willing to acknowledge that. And they didn't acknowledge that on the court. They certainly did not acknowledge it off the court. Like, nowhere was this acknowledged. Again, I don't really care what they say publicly, or like if they want to have this nonchalant attitude publicly. But that nonchalant attitude carried over to the court, and you clearly saw it all series long. It goes back to the urgency. It goes back to the intensity. It goes back to the aggression. It goes back to all of it. So finding that middle ground of, like, not straying from who you are for 82 games is a massive body of work sample size, but also not thinking that you're in a January game against Denver or in a January game against Orlando. Like, you're in the NBA playoffs. You are games away from the Western Conference Finals. You are moments away from having your series turn and go to the NBA Finals win a championship. Like, it all adds up. It all matters. It all stacks days on itself. But there's a different layer of stacking days in the playoffs versus the regular season. And so I think that they've learned all these valuable lessons, and this is what that first run was for. This is why you let these young guys figure it out. This is why you let these young guys get as far as they can this year and not go make dramatic moves before they even have a chance to see the pictures and to learn. Because now you're going to have a whole summer of like Shai and J-Dub and Chet and the rest of these guys, Josh Giddey, Casey Wallace, like have a summer to like fully comprehend what this is and what is required to win in the biggest moments. And from here on out, as we mentioned, as soon as the game ended on Saturday in Game 6, from here on out, all that matters is the playoffs. Like we're going to cover every single game, we're going to cover every single season, and those things stack up to be champions and all that. The expectation level is so different now. Like, your expectation is what you do in the playoffs. And so they're going to have now a really, really, really strong runway of opportunity to prepare and to learn and to grow from the playoffs. So that's some of the biggest lessons I think the Thunder can learn from their first playoff run. What do you think? What do you think about Shai's now Supermax eligibility? What do you think about stock watch for every single player on the roster? Are they going up or down? We'll talk about that tomorrow. And until then, be good and be good to one another.